So we will quickly get going, but just the formalities. Obviously, if we hear the fire alarm, it won't be a drill, so we can leave by the exit behind me. Please make sure your phones are off or on silent. And we are being filmed. So if a speaker doesn't wish to be filmed, it could have a word with Shania, and we won't film you. So we'll go straight into the business. And have we any apologies for absence? Of no urgent business. Anybody got any declaration of interest for this application? No? Okay, with no public questions, so let's move straight into the application this evening. Is this yours, Graham?
Right, thank you, Chair. This is the latest phase of the Foxdenton strategic site development. There's already been one detailed approval for residential on the site close to the Foxdenton Lane entranceway, which is currently under construction. This is the second phase. So this is at the top northeastern part of the site. It's got Broadway running down just to the right hand side, Foxdenton Lane down at the bottom end, and this is the first phase with the new spine road which will link through just in front of the site itself. So again, just the site boundary. Generally open land to the south at the moment, obviously future development site and an area for the country park extending down. Commercial development proposed over to the left hand side. We've got Radcliffe School and the athletics track to the north with a public footpath running along that boundary, and then the only adjacent residential properties just to the east of the site, and with there'll be, as you see on the layout, there's an emergency access route only through there with all traffic directed onto the new spine road. Again, makes it a little bit clearer. As you see, this is the application site itself and the access which will come through eventually rising onto Broadway and in this direction to Foxdenton Lane. Again, to give you views of the site, so again you can just about see the route, the new spine road as it'll come through. Now this is Derwent Drive, so this is where the emergency access will come through. So it's an area of mainly bungalows, but many of which have been extended upwards. When you get to the end of the street, you get to this point here, and then you're into what would be a little driveway, serves just one property off there, and then that will be blocked off, obviously only for the emergency services. As you'll see, the layout itself, pretty standard layout, but split into two parts. So you've got the affordable element of Great Places up here at the northern part of the site, and the countryside properties at the southern part of the site. Just over on the left hand side, it's an area of open space. This is where the sustainable drainage area will be attained as well on the development. So again, just a few more views. As you can see, it's pretty much open site at the moment. Looking north, you can see part of the school in the background, and then over towards the houses. And these are the boundaries themselves with the houses. So as you can see, some gable on, some with gardens. There's an element here of the land levels that will be reduced, although at this part of the site going to the north, there will be a raising of land levels, and members will see in the report and in the late list some reference to the need for conditions to deal with that element. Again, showing the gable wall, the roadway that will come through onto the site, and then the house, just a few of the house types, giving members an indication of those. So as I say, this is part of it's a reserved matters application. The principle of development already been established, including the access arrangements into the site. We've looked carefully and we've had discussions with the applicant about the layout and got some improvements to the layout itself and some clarification of the issues in terms of the relationship with the neighbouring housing properties and with the access route into the site from the for the emergency access as well. I would just mention the public right of way at the northern end of the site, which is at lower level than the proposed housing development, and members will see some of the conditions that are on there, and some of the amended conditions relate to that particular element. But other than that, this is obviously is a a site, the principles being established, the layouts of a suitable density, and subject to the conditions in the amended report and the original reports recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. We have a speaker, I believe. Just before we go in, can I... sorry, yes, yeah, if you come forward, sir. Just before we go on, I don't know whether it's right, but anything to declare. I work at the Radcliffe School. I'm the buildings manager there. So I don't think I have any pecuniary or any other interest in it, but I thought I'd better mention it sooner rather than later. Okay. Okay, sir, you've 3 minutes to address the committee. We'll remind you when you've 30 seconds, and the committee may wish to ask you some questions when you're ready.
Good evening, members. I'm John Sucklier, Senior Director at Avidson Young, and I'm the planning agent for this application. We have had very detailed consultation with your officers throughout the planning process. The officers' report is comprehensive and robustly addresses all the material considerations. We thank officers for their hard work and for their recommendation for approval. The wider Fox Denton site is identified as a strategic business and employment-led site in the Council's core strategy. In November 2014, the Council granted hybrid planning permission for an employment-led mixed-use development at the site, which included up to 500 residential dwellings to secure the deliverability of the scheme and its infrastructure. Parcel R1 forms part of the wider Fox Denton site, and the principle of residential development at Parcel 1 was established as part of the hybrid planning permission. We have worked very closely with your officers, and we have amended the scheme to secure their support. Firstly, all house types on the site will be 100% compliant with the nationally described spacing standards. Secondly, 82 of the 137 properties proposed will be affordable housing, which amounts to 60% provision and will be managed by Great Places. This is a significant benefit to the scheme, given that there is no requirement in the hybrid planning permission for any affordable housing to be provided. Thirdly, the development will make a positive contribution to the Council's housing requirements. Countryside proposed to commence development on site in June and are targeting the first occupation of houses in March 2020. The development will deliver a diverse range of properties which are deliberately different to those already being built on the wider Fox Denton site, so as to further contribute towards making the site and the wider area an address of choice. Fourthly, we have worked extensively with your highways officers to ensure all aspects of the development are acceptable. The original hybrid planning application included provision for a secondary access off Derwent Drive to serve a maximum of 40 properties. However, this scheme proposes that Derwent Drive will only be used as an emergency, cyclist and pedestrian access. Finally, the scheme layout will protect the amenity of existing residents of the area and future residents of the site. The layout has been carefully set out so that the proposal will maintain privacy and amenity, whilst also ensuring that all street and public spaces will be well overlooked to provide natural surveillance. It should also be noted that a construction management plan will be submitted to discharge condition 16 on the hybrid planning permission. This will ensure that the construction phase of development will have a minimal impacts on existing residents that surround the site. This development will assist in financially cross-subsidising the delivery of the employment development at the wider Fox Denton site. The Council is a major stakeholder in the wider development, and the delivery of this scheme will enable the development and achieve a key milestone following the award of £4.9 million grant funding towards infrastructure works from Homes England. I would like to thank you for your time and respectfully request that members support this application and grant planning permission in line with your office's recommendation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about you saying that this road will only be used to Derwent Drive in emergencies. What provision have we got that puts that in black and white? If I lived in Derwent Drive, I'd listen to that and I would think, yeah, but who's to stop somebody using it if they want? But there must be a reason that we can answer that. So I'm asking you, what is the answer to that?
Okay, if you are able to look at the planning layout quite clearly shows that there are removable bollards shown at the end of Derwent Drive, and those bollards would be effectively removable in emergency sort of requirements. So they would there to be sort of prevent general traffic.
Okay, could I just ask a question about that? I've seen a similar thing. I've got some instances in my ward about the general upkeep of these. You know, I'd say 10 years' time. Who would actually be responsible for the maintenance of those removable bollards?
Well, if the road was adopted, it could be the local highways authority. If the road wasn't adopted, then it would be through the management scheme for the development.
Any more questions?
You described the affordable houses going to be managed by, was it Great Places?
Great Places, that's correct, yes.
Are those, what's the story behind that? Are they for rent? Are they, are they just cheaper houses?
Yeah, there will be a mix of intermediate and affordable rented.
Okay, any more questions? No? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, well, it's open debate. It looks absolutely what we need, this nice mix of houses. I know the office have worked hard with the developers to get to make sure we do meet those minimum standards, which we all hold, you know, very important to us on the committee. John?
Well, I'm happy that the office has made all these conditions so that if you live on Derwent Drive and you're affected, they're going to sort that out beforehand. This is the type of thing that I wanted with other planning applications, so I'm very pleased at this. I know we all want houses to be built and nobody wants them next to them. I realise that, but I think looking at this, the officers have addressed all the things that I were worried about, and so I'm quite pleased that they've done that, and I'd just like to thank them.
Okay, any more? Val?
Thank you. There has been an assessment of noise from the athletics track, but I don't see in this report an assessment of any light pollution. Will the houses on the boundary there be affected by floodlights that might be used?
There's no indication that that would be a problem. There is, in fact, there's a fair bit of distance between the lights themselves, and obviously the direction of those lights is clearly intended to illuminate the track itself. So if the lights themselves are currently shining out over the site boundary, then clearly I think there's a waste of energy there. It's something that school themselves need to look at. I'm not aware that there's been any issues that have been raised on that particular instance. There are obviously controls under environmental protection legislation if problems were to occur, but as I say, the layout of the track where the lights are actually illuminated should not cause a problem to those residents, and there is no evidence to say that that would be a future problem.
Okay, without prejudice, the floodlights are used only infrequently, and there's a very high tree line around it. But I would say that the school wouldn't entertain any comeback from this if there was to be a problem. I'm sure, and again I say that without prejudice.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I think this development, you know, we're producing, you know, aspirational homes, more affordable homes. I don't know about affordable, but probably more affordable. Jobs. You know, it's a good scheme, and personally, I think it'd be worth approving.
I agree with that, so I'm gonna move approval. Have we got a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Hudson. All those in favour of approval? That's unanimous, thank you. And that is the end of the meeting. Thank you.